Hello everyone. Today is kind of a solemn day for me. It's January 12th, 2024, and it has been 39 years since my friend was shot and killed. Debbie Zimmer, she would have been 56 today, and it was her 17th birthday. Grief comes in all sorts of ways, and a lot of people don't understand how to manage it or utilize it or how to even look at it. When this happened to me, losing my friend, I didn't know how to handle grief. I didn't know anything about grief. The people I'd lost before that had been very close and dear to me, but there was nobody to teach me how to move through it or even to understand the different stages. My first experience was my grandfather on my mother's side, and we just didn't talk about it. We came back for the funeral and I never spoke another word about it. It caused pain, so I just left it alone. The next person that passed away was my paternal grandfather. Now, this was the person that I felt loved me the most in the world. I felt safe with him. And he had passed away when I was 9. And again, I was told this event happened, and that was the end of it. No more conversation. And it was devastating, of course. So I just learned to shove it under the carpet and not deal with it because I had no clue how. So by the time my friend passed away, when I was not quite 17, there had been a run of people leaving us, young people, and again, with no way to manage. At this time, they didn't put grief counselors in schools. We had one boy shoot himself in the stomach and pass away. We had somebody hang themselves. We had somebody huffing with aerosol. We had car accidents. So by that time, I just had nothing in the tool bag. I'm going to take a pause. Now, my friend Debbie, she was killed by a gun. A bunch of other circumstances around that too. And when we get to the other section, the over and out section, I will talk more about the mystical experiences I had around Debbie. Her helping me to forgive, and helping me to move on from that state of grief. Grief comes in all shapes and sizes, all ranges and levels of experience. We know the deeper the love, the deeper the grief. There's grief from a loved one's passing, whether it's your beloved, your partner, your child, a family member, a friend, a pet. They all have a piece of our heart. Whether it's an idea, a dream, a way of life, beliefs, or merely just the loss of innocence. These things hurt in a different way, but they still measure as grief. Whether you lose a limb, mastectomies, take your breast or breasts, amputations, take parts of your body, whether it's an outer limb, an organ, an eye. Whether you're paralyzed, you lose your sight, lose your speech. These are things that we grieve because they change and take a deep hold. And our attachment to these things and the way that we live and the way that we are and the way that we just be. We also have the loss of love, whether it's a friendship gone bad or a romantic breakup or a divorce. All these things, they still hurt, and we need to know how to grieve them and how to move through them. I really appreciated kind of the olden days, you know, where they would wear the armband and you would know the person was grieving, or the person would dress in black and you know that they were grieving. We should go back to something like that, because people are always grieving and in grief, and maybe it would remind us to be a little kinder. So whether you are in love, in peace, in joy, or in grief, be in it. Be all in. Feel it. Feel it deeply. If you don't feel it, you won't know when it starts to dissipate. You won't know when it's leaving. So feel it in its ever glorious way. Honor it. It's okay. So, Into the Grief Garden is a program I've created. You don't need anything fancy. We work upon the 7 stages of grief. I know traditionally I believe there's 5, but I like to use 7. I go with the 7 chakras. It just makes it into steps. It makes it a little easier to deal with. And there's no time limit. I'd say, a year is kind of a nice container, but sometimes things take a little longer. And it depends on, the depth of the love that was there. Never expect it to end or go away, because that doesn't happen, of course. There's always, like the Japanese pottery, kintsugi, I think it's called. Kintsugi. I never say it right, I'm sorry. But it's Japanese pottery that's been broken into pieces, and they mend the cracks with gold to put it back together. So think about your heart in that way. All the losses that you've incurred, your heart is mended with gold. Love, pure love. Washing windows. What is that? I wrote it down because I can never remember how to say it properly. Into the grief garden I go to sow my seeds of sorrow and to water them with love eternal. So the way we release emotions is through our body fluids. Crying is good. The lump we get in our throat, think of it as it's pressure that needs to be released. It's the love coming up, and it needs to come out. And that's okay. Okay, so Into the Grief Garden. I bought the Grief Garden for a few different reasons. The B, obviously, The bee provides honey like love. It gets it from flowers, which is wonderful. But it also can sting. Love stings sometimes. And it makes us cry and it makes us hurt. But eventually, it's less. Eventually, the weight is lifted. Allow the time. Along with the grief garden, I created another bead set. This one's the bumblebee. I make them in all sorts of, animals or insects or anything that's in the garden or whatever you like, because generally the earth is a garden and everything on it is belongs there. So so we use this bead set. You don't need the bead set, but I like to have it handy to work on the 7 stages. So the 7 stages that I incorporate are the first one being shock and denial, the why me, and you feel out of control. And this is connected to our root chakra and fear and our sense of smell. And hence going to the garden, because the garden's usually quite lovely. And it can be a real garden, or it could be one in your imagination, or maybe one you've been to before. Couple different ways to work with that. The second one would be our sacral chakra, where our hara is, the creative center, and that is pain, guilt, and regret. So these are things we have to work through. Our third center is anger and bargaining. So here, trying to make heads or tail of why it happened and just being furious for it happening. And that's okay, that's allowed. Bargaining, making a deal, trying to appease the universe in some way to make it different. But we can't go back, can we? Number 4, depression and holding on. So number 4, the breath, the heart, breathing, remembering to breathe, doing some breath work to help us relax, to help us center and ground and oxygenate, to fuel us, to fuel our inner spark and our own fire to continue. We have our 5th, which is the upturn and the letting go. So this is also the throat chakra and our 5th chakra. Yes, speak to them the things that were left unsaid, even if it's a limb. Find forgiveness if you feel in any way responsible. Ease your own heart. By letting go, letting and releasing and saying the words and having forgiveness will help alleviate the pressure. And I think the pressure is like making a diamond, so let it out. Number 6, reconstruction and working through. So our third eye, our vision, our imagination, our future pacing, our figuring out how it's going to look going forward. And number 7, our crown chakra, acceptance and hope and peace. So finding that connection, finding our inner voice, finding our higher consciousness to help us, asking for guidance, asking for relief, and in ways that you can be guided to find for yourself. Our subconscious has so much power and knows the things that can help us through the difficult times. And the more we practice, the better we get, and the easier it is the next time. We're human, and it's life, and being human and living means death and dying also. So whether it is on the physical level, the emotional level, or just the mental level, the spiritual level can help us overcome the grief. So if you're suffering, don't suffer in silence. Ask for help, find a group, contact me. Yeah. The love is there. It will never go. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about ending the grief because you think you're going to forget, or the love will lessen, because it won't. Love never dies. Thank you. Be well.